If you've ever managed a project, you know the feeling. You're just buried under a mountain of paperwork. You've got reports, you've got memos, updates. It can feel like the documents are the real job, right? But what if most of that noise is just a distraction? And what if, hidden inside all of it, are the only tools you actually need to get the job done?
It really does feel like this, doesn't it? Especially for a new manager. It's this constant rising tide of paper that just seems designed to pull you away from the actual work. It really is a feeling of drowning in documentation.
And look, let's be totally honest here. Most of it is a nuisance. It's busy work. But here's the secret. Buried inside that tide is a small, very specific set of documents that aren't a distraction at all. In fact, they are the very tools of your craft.
And that brings us to a really powerful mental model for managing, well, any project, really. It's called the documentary hypothesis. And it's all about completely reframing your relationship with paperwork.
So here's the core idea. The hypothesis is this. In any given project, amidst that sea of paper, there are just a handful of key documents that become the central pivot points for all your management work. These aren't just administrative chores. They are your most essential personal tools for making things happen.
Okay, so what are these critical documents? Well, what's so fascinating is that when you start looking across completely different fields, wildly different industries, a universal pattern starts to emerge.
Just take a look at this. It doesn't matter if you're building a new computer, running a university department, or managing a software project. The really critical documents always answer the same 5 basic questions. What are we building? When is it due? How much is it going to cost? Where is the work going to happen? And who is going to do it? That's it. That's the core of any project.
Now, when you have these documents properly in place, it creates a certain kind of pressure, a discipline. And that discipline can bring out the absolute best in a team, right? It focuses their efforts. But without it, you get the exact opposite. You get endless, ridiculous back and forth.
This anecdote is just the perfect example of that. For 3 whole years, a team argued about a single component. When performance was the top priority, they decided to build it in hardware. But then when cost became the priority, they'd move it into software. This endless flip-flopping happened for one simple reason. There was no firm, documented decision to lock the project in place and move on.
Now let's think back to that WHO document for a second, the organization chart. Its power goes way deeper than you might think, and it's captured perfectly by something called Conway's Law. Basically, it says that the system you design will inevitably be a mirror image of your team's communication structure. In other words, how you organize your people on paper directly, and I mean directly, shapes the final product.
Okay, so we've seen what these critical documents are, but why? Why is the simple act of writing them down so incredibly powerful? Well, it turns out there are 3 really distinct reasons.
First up, and this one might be the most important. Writing forces you to be precise. You know how an idea can seem perfectly clear in your head, but when you try to explain it, you realize it's kind of fuzzy and full of holes? The simple act of writing it down exposes all those gaps. It forces you to make hundreds of necessary little mini decisions that transform a vague idea into an exact plan.
All right, number 2. This is all about getting everyone on the same page.
Let's be real. A manager's #1 job is communication. It's about keeping everyone rowing in the same direction. And these documents, they're your most powerful tool for doing exactly that. They communicate your decisions clearly, consistently, and it just lightens your daily communication load immensely.
And third, this is where the document stops being a plan and becomes a living tool. You see, these documents aren't just for planning at the beginning of a project. They become your personal database, your control panel. By reviewing them, you get a clear, real-time picture of where the project stands, what's falling behind, and exactly where you need to focus your attention.
So let's pull all of this together and really think about how we can reframe our whole approach to this stuff.
When you boil it all down, a manager's role is pretty simple. You develop a plan, and then you make that plan a reality.
But here is the biggest takeaway from all of this. The only plan that is precise, that is communicable, and that is real is the one you write down. Your plan is these documents. They are the definition of what you're building, when it's due, the budget, the resources, and the team.
So if you can just start to see this small set of documents not as annoying chores that someone is forcing on you, but as friendly, essential tools that you get to wield to shape your project, well, you will set your direction more crisply and more effectively than you ever thought possible.
Which leaves us with one final question for you to think about. Looking at your own work right now, what is the one document, the objectives, the schedule, the budget, the org chart, that could bring the most clarity to your project